Hello and welcome back. Following the previous video, the plaster of Paris and the sand set perfectly. Following that, I dusted off the excess sand. I based this with a white primer. I then used a grey shade on these outcroppings here, so that when I apply a base colour there's more depth and shadow to them. And essentially I did the same with the sand, except I used a contrast Agros Dunes colour to give it that darker shade. Again, I'm going to base over these with sort of a sandy yellow and probably sort of a brown or something along these, and hopefully having based them with essentially a shade or a contrast, it will help bring out some of the depths to them. So I'm now going to go ahead and paint this, and we'll come back once this has been painted. So this has now been fully painted. I initially gave the underside a wash with some Agrex Dunes contrast paint, and then I used a yellow paint over the top to give it the colour. You can see how the Agrex is still coming through a little on the shading, which just gives it that added tonnage. After the grey shading on the rocks, I did a very light brown wash, as you can see here, and it's now giving it this very sort of brown stony effect, which I really do like. I've also added a couple of tufts of grass effects to act as various undersea kelp, etc, etc. I've got some other bits which I intend on using. So I've got some other tufts and grass-like bits which I intend on using here. So let's bring in some glue. Cement should probably do the trick actually. So just make sure it's well ventilated as we're using this cement. The other thing I've also done off camera is I've painted the windows a white, just to give it a contrast. I might add a shade to that, a very light blue, to give it sort of a reflective surface. I haven't quite decided that bit yet. But let's get some of these tufts on here. So how's this? I've not used these before. They were given as a Christmas present. So I think we will add some of this just to oh jeez, there we go. I'm going to add some of this around here, just to give the effect of, you know, undersea coral and reefs, etc. Just sort of there. Okay. Just, oh, no. There we go. I think I'll add a little bit more just over here on this side. Again, added those. I don't want a lot, I just want a little bit around the rocks to give it that sense of undersea life. Let's see what this one's like as well. How's this looking? Oh, it's not bad. that down there. Maybe rip off a small bit and just place it on the top of the rock. As I said, I don't want a lot of this. I don't want it detracting or... I just want to give that effect of there being more to the seabed than just sand. So that there. And then the other thing I have which I can add to this is some natural shells. So get this opened up and let's get a couple of shells out, shall we? Just to add some life to this seabed. Cement's going to do it. I might need some super glue. Yeah, I think it's going to want some super glue. That's fine, I can get that. So just add some glue to the back of that. And that will go there, supposedly. Didn't mean to knock that off. There it is. And some other shell. Just a couple of other shells. There's a couple more shells. And one there. And one. Two along here and one here, so it's not completely. There we go. That's not too bad. That adds some effects to the undersea-ness of it all. Next will be looking at securing the terrorfish and stingray itself to the base. So I have this large acrylic rod which I will cut down to size and then glue to the base before attaching stingray and then another small one here for the terrorfish. Okay, so I've taken the acrylic rod and I've cut two small bits off. If you're unsure how to do that, all the best thing to do is get like a Stanley knife or something, just gently score along where you want to cut it, then get a hacksaw and just saw through. Eventually it will get to a certain point that you can just easily bend and snap it. If you're snapping it, just be careful you don't take off too much on one end more than you need. If that does happen, all you need to do is just sand it down, and I'd recommend sanding them down regardless, which is what I've done here. So I've got a small one which will be used for the terrorfish, and then the slightly larger one which is going to be used for stingray. So I'm thinking the best way to stick them down is probably going to be with hot glue rather than a super glue. So all I'm going to do is stick these down and then stick the respective craft on top of them. So I've got my hot glue nice and warmed up, and all I'm going to do is take just a small amount. There we go. And base, and then do the same again, and Terrafish. There we go. That's the fish stuck on, and then we need to do Stingray. So do another nice globule. Stick that down about there. And the other thing I've done with Stingray is literally just got a bit of contrast glacier colour and just dabbed them on, and you can see where it's pooling. It gives it sort of a almost a reflective sheen, not quite, but it's enough to make it pass as sort of a transparent window, as it were. And there is our Stingray. There we have them. That is looking fantastic. It really is coming along nicely. I will now let these dry, and then once dried and everything's settled, we will look at creating some sort of enhancement in order to pour the resin. But that'll be the next video.